Adam Silver at his press conference in Paris talked again about the Europe expansion. Went into a little more detail there about their plans there, and then we'll talk a little about Lakers-Celtics. Let Anthony have a little fun there at the end, get some candy, and then I'll also talk about Buenos Aires again. I've got another video coming out, hopefully on Sunday, although I'm a little behind my editing schedule on that. But put a couple of out already and had some really good responses and feedback, so been fun to talk about. But let's start with the first Paris game there between the San Antonio Spurs and the Indiana Pacers. I don't know if you've been following any of the sort of build up to this, but Victor Wembanyama, obviously a huge story, both literally and figuratively. It's hilarious watching him walk around the streets of Paris. And I mean, he looks like the BFG out there, this gigantic man. And it's great to see so much love. Of course, he's in not his home city. I don't think he's actually a Parisian, but he's in France, and obviously there's a huge amount of love for him, and fair enough too.
Yeah, the run up to it, I actually thought they should have made a bigger deal out of this. Wemby is going to be the face of the league. Like, he is going to be the best player after LeBron is done. He's probably going to pass up Jokic in the next few years. He's just an incredible talent. I was actually I saw that the game was on NBA TV, and I thought that given that ESPN's like daily programming is such fodder, seems like an opportunity to put this game on ESPN and let ESPN really hype it up. I'm not sure what kind of rights issues you run into there, because it's a Thursday game, which obviously makes it complicated because of TNT's responsibilities. You could put it on TNT too, though. I just think it was the game itself was really fun. Victor Wembanyama was incredible. He spoke after the game about how much that meant to him. I just thought that, this was the kind of thing that you should be seeing on a larger platform than NBA TV.
It seems to always be on NBA TV though. So again,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the reason is there for the rights and things like that. But yeah, you would think ESPN live sport basketball in the middle of the day would actually be, something they would like.
Yeah.
But despite all that, Victor Wembanyama, I mean, he was just
Oh
incredible.
my
Got some
gosh.
highlights here, like
Yeah.
some of the shots he was making. I think this is the one where he throws it off the backboard to himself, and I mean, he's just a gigantic man. You see on the replay, we didn't see it there, but on the replay, Tyrese Halliburton just sort of looks and is like, there's literally nothing I can do here. I just have to
Yeah.
watch. Unfortunately, the game itself, it was a good first half, but it was a 30-point margin in the end.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of the Wizards and the Heat game in Mexico City earlier this year as well. Another blowout. Obviously, they'll be hoping for something a little closer for the second game there on Saturday. And I mean, look, the Spurs and the NBA wants Wemby to win that one, but I don't think you want another 30-point blowout, because it just sort of takes the life out of it. You want, obviously, as we all do in any sporting event, you just want to have a good contest. And so, look, Wembanyama lived up to the billing. He was great. His team won, and again, just further evidence of just how good he is. He's hitting those step back threes. The defense is there. He's got incredible handles. And you're right. I mean, it's just a matter of time, really. Like, get your awards in now, everybody else. Get your defensive player of the year. Get your MVPs in there. Because I think this is sort of thing is like, the hardest thing to do in sport, and pretty much in life, is when someone hypes something up, like, it's got to live up to that hype. And LeBron did it, and he's exceeded that throughout his career. But not many other players have from day one been this sort of hope and belief that we thought they might have been, and then just continue to get better and better and better.
Yeah.
And that's what I see from Wembanyama.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Halliburton's response to the play there at that Wemby made at the end of that highlight reel. And one of my favorite things to do when I'm watching a Wemby game is to pay extra attention to the other guys on the court, because Leigh, these guys are all like the best players in the history of their high school. They have always been the best players of every team that they've ever been on. They have done things on a basketball court that 99.999999% of people like dream of being able to do on a basketball court. And for these guys to react the way that they do, and opposing teams too, like you'll catch opposing teams just go like, what? For NBA players to react that way to stuff that an NBA player is doing is pretty extraordinary. It kind of reminds me, there's a great highlight reel. I don't know if it's still, I know NBA scrubbed, or the NBA scrubbed a lot of its old like archived footage, or like, the old, like, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson type of like full games. But there was a game that Bird played against the Hawks, and he scored like 45 or 50 or something like that. It was a crazy scoring
Not the
performance.
60-point game, was it? Where the Hawks bench is going crazy.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, like you're watching, he's making these shots, and you can see in the background of him making these shots, the guys on the Atlanta Hawks bench going like, oh!
Yeah.
It is just so incredible. And that's like my favorite thing to like, because LeBron did it, Michael gets it from people, but Wemby is like in a special a special case here, because he's so big, he's so smooth, he's so agile, he's so skilled. And these guys that are watching this stuff take place, even on the court, are like, huh? That doesn't even make sense.
But on top of that as well, his maturity for a guy of his age already, and all the attention he must be getting, and all the focus that's on him, and the responsibility, for France and now for the San Antonio Spurs. It's like he's been in the league 10 years. It's like he's like a guy who's been through some stuff early on, and tried to figure it out, and he's gotten out to the other side. He's already there. And so that's the other sort of daunting prospect for the rest of the league, is like, if this guy's already this mature, and he's got the handles, and he's shooting those threes, I mean, how do you game plan against him? Yeah. Because if you're the front office now for San Antonio, you've still got some draft picks as well coming in here. It's like, if you can find the right pieces to surround him with, and I'm guessing, again, with the way the current game is, you just want shooters around him, because any double off him, he will be able to see wherever the open man is, simply by looking over the defense. He can fire that ball. He's got an incredible touch with the pass, and the Spurs will become virtually unbeatable. So it's fun, though. I mean, like I say, I remember seeing these highlights early, and I'm just being like, when he was at what's the team name there? Paris 92 or something. Yeah. And it was like the handle. I was like, my God, he's dropping the ball behind his back there so smoothly. It's like, is he going to be able to do that in the NBA? And so far, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the maturity and how it feels like he's been in the league for so long. The moment I knew he was going to be special, and whether or not he was going to live up to the hype, like the hype was so extraordinary that I didn't know that anybody could. He has, and exceeded it. But the moment that I knew he was at the very least going to be really bleeping good was during the lottery. They had a camera on him when the Spurs won the lottery, and he was visibly excited that he was going to the Spurs over, what was the other team that was in the running there?
Who went second in that draft? That's a good question. I should know that. But
yeah, they
wasn't maybe the Hornets, was it? Was it the Hornets?
Might have been. We can, but like they there's a clip of him where you could see that the Spurs win the lottery, or the other team's like logo comes up, and he's like, yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that he understood that the Spurs are going to get the most out of him. It's one of the better run organizations in the sport. He was excited to go to San Antonio as a city, right? Like, I live near it, not that great, but like it's, but it was just, that was the moment. I was like, he is mature beyond his years in the understanding that the Spurs are going to get the most out of him.
Yeah.
And he shows up and he says all the right things about winning. Remember how upset he was, losing in the rookie showcase last year, where they asked him like, Victor, you look pretty peeved that you're losing this game. He's like, I bleeping hate losing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this guy, the league better buckle up. And like you mentioned, the Spurs putting players around him. I think it means that the rest of the teams, if you have an even like slight chance at a championship this year, Go all in
Oh,
because
wow,
you
that's
are
right.
going.
Yeah.
We are entering
Yeah.
the Victor Wembanyama era.
Yeah. I think you've got at least one more season before the Spurs, really become a serious contender. I think they make the
Yeah.
playoffs, but yeah, you want to cash in while you can now because once he does get a hold on it, he might not let it go anytime
No.
soon. And I mean, the concern with those big guys, and we've seen a little bit through Porzingis, is whether or not his body will be able to stand up to to the league and going against teams every night. And again, so far he's shown a pretty good resilience in that sense because it's hard to not kind of bang into him when he's just that big and that gangly. But he's not putting himself in harm's way in that respect as well. Like he's trying his best as he can just to defend without fouling, and I mean, he can reach anything. That's the crazy thing. Is some of those drives that people go on, you think, oh yeah, they'll get that off, and out of the corner of nowhere, he just comes and erases the shot. So um,
He's
it's
just
fun. It's fun. I just yeah. I mean, like I say, the game itself was very good first half, and it's fun watching Wemby, but it wasn't the most competitive second half there down the stretch.
Yeah, you mentioned the Porzingis comp. I think he moves a lot more fluidly than there's a lot more fluidity to his game than we saw from even early Porzingis. Like I watched Porzingis play, and he always reminded me of remember when like SUVs, there was like a big kind of crisis with SUVs about how often they were tipping over, and they were always just like big narrow things that you would make a left turn at like 50 miles an hour and like one of the tires would lift off of the ground.
Yeah.
That's how like that's how like
Yeah.
Kristaps always felt to me. I think Wemby actually does a great job of bending his knees and getting lower to the ground on occasion.
Yeah.
That like provides him a better base. So I'm not as concerned with him
Yeah.
tweaking something or whatever as I was with
Yeah.
Porzingis or these other guys. Like AD is another guy who comes to mind, right? I think he's done a lot better job the last couple of years of not standing upright as much. And over the last couple of seasons, like he's on pace to play about 70 games this year,
Yeah.
played 70 last year. When you're that tall and you ask that much of your big, tall body, you have to be very cognizant of what you're doing, even when you're not doing anything. And I
Yeah.
think Wemby is very good with that stuff.
Oh, yeah, he is. I mean, I guess it's always the worry that, again, someone just accidentally rolls over and,
Yeah.
bends his leg and those things, they happen no matter how well you take care of your own body. Of course, that can happen. But yeah, well, it was great to see. And it's fun. He seems like a nice kid. I was here when he was here in Atlanta last year. I didn't get to speak to him personally, but I was in there for the scrum and handled it all really well, and excited for him. And the Spurs now, they have 3 number 1 picks in their history: David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Victor Wembanyama.
That's why he was excited to go to the Spurs.
Yeah, and I remember
He
Greg
knew how to do it.
Popovich, when because the Spurs have gotten so much credit over the years for how they build their team around, Duncan and Parker and those guys and the consistency. And Popovich, someone said, what's your philosophy? And he said, just win the lottery once every 10 years and draft a Hall of Famer. That's all you got to do, And
It's really that simple.
but I like that sort of, where he's like, I mean, it's just when you have that number 1 pick sometimes and who's available. And,
Yeah.
I mean, the Hawks, obviously, Risa Shea, they got him this year or, in last year's draft. He's been good, but of course, he's certainly not a Victor Wembanyama out there. But he's been, yeah, well, it's been good. But, well, those Victors are once every probably 25 years. So the Spurs just cashed in at the right time.
Yep.
The other news that we got yesterday was the All-Star Game starters were announced. Not a huge surprise, except for, I guess, the one person who we didn't really expect was going to make it was LaMelo Ball. He was leading the fan vote there. But when all the votes came in with the media and the players, he misses out. And the backcourt for the Eastern Conference is Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell. Tatum, Karl Anthony Towns, so 2 Knicks in there starting, and Giannis also in the front court. And on the West, Steph, he got in there, the hometown boy in San Francisco. KD, his former Warriors teammate. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, my MVP favorite. Bron, of course. I think did Bron end up with the leading votes, or was that Giannis? I can't remember. But he's back in there, and Nikola Jokic. So, mentioned LaMelo Ball. What did you think? I mean, we sort of suspected he probably wasn't going to start, despite having the popularity amongst the fans.
Yeah, I keep going back and forth on this with LaMelo, because the All-Star game is a game for the fans, right? And I guess Kevin O'Connor was tweeting about this last night, that there were only 3 votes from the media for LaMelo to start, compared to getting the most votes to start in the game. Would really love to get an explanation for this. I think I want to probably chalk it up to TikTok and younger fans and stuff like that, because he does play such a fun brand of the game. So on one hand, I'm thinking, I think it makes a lot of sense for the guy who got the most fan vote to play in the game for the fans. On the other hand, though, because all-star games and awards and accomplishments are tied into what players make in a year, you kind of got to reward winning too, right? So I honestly, legitimately can't land on a strong take here. If you really feel strongly that LaMelo should have been in the game, all right, I could hear you. I could hear the arguments to that end. Or if you really think that Jalen Brunson deserves being in the game because of the amounts of winning that the Knicks have done this year, all right, I'm fine hearing that too. If I had my pick, if I had for some weird reason, somebody put a gun to my head on all-star takes, I would probably say I want LaMelo over Brunson in the game, because I think LaMelo is a more fun player. But it just kind of is what it is. The guy I feel for here is LaMelo. Like,
Yeah,
he's probably saying, like, it's not my fault I play for the Hornets. And by the way, that is the team that came second in the Wemby chase, right? He's like, it's not my fault that I play for this crap organization that hasn't done any winning in its entire existence. That I didn't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a tough spot. I don't know. Do you have any strong thoughts on it?
I definitely think that the way the Cavs have played, Mitchell deserves to start. And I think the way that Jalen Brunson has played, he deserves to start. LaMelo, most popular amongst the fans, but I would like to see more wins. I do weight winning in all the awards. I think it is important to have wins, because ultimately that's the name of the game here. And looking at it for LaMelo, again, I'm not sure he even makes the game now, because if you look at the backcourt, who he's going up against, I think Lillard, I think Cade Cunningham is there, maybe Halliburton. I know the Pacers started off slow, but they've been playing much better lately. Trae Young's in the mix, I think, as well. I mean, the Hawks are a bit the same, where they're sort of up and down. Tyrese Maxey, I don't think so. I think the Sixers have just been so bad this season. So, I'm not sure Melo even makes it at all, which that in itself does present a different problem for the NBA, because it's like, hang on, if this is a sort of, hey, we want the fans to decide who the All-Stars are, then he has to get in one way or the other if he was the most popular in that particular slot in the voting. So I'm not sure how they do it, but again, I think it is important. Oh, Garland's another one, actually. I think they're going to get Garland there for the Cavs. So I'm not sure. Cunningham, Garland, Lillard, and then who, like I say, Trae Young's in the mix. I think he's led the league in assists all year. The Hawks, of course, haven't been completely convincing, but that's where it makes it hard, I think, for Melo to even get in. And does he have the respect of the coaches? I'm not sure. So
I think he would probably be the first player. I was thinking about this last night. I think he would be the first player in any professional sport to get the most fan vote and not appear in the game at all. I can't think of any other. Now, I guess this is, I tweeted that out last night, and somebody said that apparently this is going on with a safety who plays for the Lions. Now, in the Pro Bowl, you always get like players drop out for injury or just disinterest in playing in the game, or their team makes a Super Bowl or whatever. And so there's still a possibility that this safety for the Lions could get in, but you're still looking at an extremely rare circumstance like you're talking about. And yeah, I just find it really, really difficult here for the NBA to say, like, this is a game for the fans, a game built by the fans, all of these things, and then to not reward the fans for this guy winning it. It just doesn't quite sit right with me.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like the TikTok vote sort of thing, like because
Yeah.
Melo, how many of those people who vote for him couldn't care less, wouldn't even know what the Hornets record is? You know, they're just like,
Yeah.
hey man, have you watched this guy play? Because he's awesome to watch. I absolutely love watching his highlights. You know, he's got this three where he's doing this skippy three where he just, you know, he doesn't really jump, but he sort of just, you know, I tweeted about it once saying, it's like it's like the shot, it's like the whistle has blown and the ball's just sort of rolled into his hands and he's just getting up like a practice shot with his friends, or, you know, the
Yeah.
end of the practice sort of like last shot, we got to go, man, the bus is leaving. And he's like, all right. And he just flings it off
That's
there,
a good one. Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like a glitch to me. It looks like, you know, when you're playing
Yeah.
2K and you hit the wrong button.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like shoot, I was meant to,
Yeah.
that was supposed to be oh, it went
Yeah.
in. All right,
Yeah.
cool.
Went in. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, look, it's it's a dilemma that, again, ultimately, I think the NBA has gotten the right decision right now because for me it is important to have winning and to recognise those teams that have been great all season so far, and the Hornets, you know, certainly haven't been. So you know, it's interesting, but yeah, two Knicks in there, you know, and then a Celtic, of course, and Giannis, no surprise, he makes it there again, and then of course LeBron and Jokic. Steph and Shea Gilgeous
KD.
Alexander out in the West. I mean, you know, hard to argue with any of those spots. I think they're all deserving, and it sort of reflects not only the fan vote, of course, but you know what we're seeing in terms of winning for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane that LeBron, Steph, KD are starting yet again, right?
Yeah,
Like that's something like 50 all-star starts between the three of them.
yeah, yeah,
It's incredible. Like it's just you know, an entire era of NBA basketball wrapped up in those three talents, and to watch them age the way that they are, to watch them still play at a level like this is, you know, legitimately do not take this for granted. It
yeah.
does not happen all the time, ever.
You know,
It never happens.
and KD's always an interesting one, you know, because of his sort of relationship with fans. It seems to,
Yeah.
you know, be you know, combative, certainly more than anybody else, but he's still loved and respected and admired. And you know, even again at his age alone, on the Suns, who aren't doing very well. Actually, the Warriors, the Lakers, and the Suns aren't doing all that well, all of them, and they've all got a starter there. So maybe winning doesn't matter. Who knows? Who cares? I
Yeah.
mean, we'll never really know for sure. Okay, moving on, because going back somewhat to the Paris game yesterday, Adam Silver had a press conference and opened it up, of course, to all the media, the traveling media, and was asked again about the Europe expansion. And Brian Windhorst had a really good article up there on ESPN talking a little bit more about it. And he was alluding to the fact that the NBA, while we suspect there's going to be some expansion here in the United States, possibly Vegas, possibly Seattle, you know, possibly Mexico City or Kansas City or somewhere like that. In Windy's article, it sounded more like the NBA is almost thinking, you know what, we don't really need to expand here. We need to expand elsewhere in the world. And
Mhm.
their approach is, again, to sort of almost take on EuroLeague and decide whether or not there's a league to be based in Europe or if it's to somehow be incorporated into the NBA. I don't think it'll ever work with that European-based league that's playing somehow in the NBA. It just won't. I just
Yeah.
can't see that happening. But interesting, I bring this up again because we've talked a bit about how Adam Silver's alluded to this in the past. And rather than sort of be vague, I mean, you know, there's nothing locked in, but it certainly sounds like the NBA is really moving in that direction of like, we want to have a big presence in Europe and fairly soon.
I think it's smart. You know, I do think here domestically in the States, we do need another couple teams, because I think there's the talent pool is now deep enough that they could sustain a couple more teams. But I also think, like, there was actually, while we've been talking, there was a clip of Lonnie Walker talking about the experience he's had playing in Europe. And he said, now I haven't heard the clip specifically, but he said apparently that it's the best kind of setting or scene that he's ever played in, and I think in many ways the NBA product has become a little stale, and finding ways to inject a little bit of extra passion and again expand that reach. The one thing, basically the NBA I think is probably going to run up against a bit of a glass ceiling domestically, because the NFL just keeps on growing and growing and growing and coming for their stuff. And we've already watched them kind of yank Christmas away from the NBA just this year, right? The NBA was like, "Hey, look at our numbers. We did really good." And the NFL was like, That's adorable. We got 25 million people. Yeah. I think, for the NBA though, like, because the NFL, I don't think has quite caught hold in Europe in the way that they would perhaps like. That's what happens when you send the Jacksonville Jaguars every year. And I, it seems like an opportunity here to go somewhere that the NFL isn't as popular, and the sport of basketball is incredibly popular. So I don't know what it'll look like specifically, but looking to expand and have more of a European presence makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, and for me, they're talking about apparently, again, according to Windhorst in this article here, they've reached out to potential investors and team owners to see, who's interested in putting up the cash, because we know that the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, they are really looking to get a foothold here in the NBA. They've got an established footprint in the soccer world. So it seems to me like that would be where the NBA would also target investment, because they know that's where the money is.
No.
It's
the
like,
smile that you see on my face is like, okay, that's how the NBA gets its hands on Emirate
foreign
money.
investment. Yeah.
Yeah, without having it be here in the States.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And also we talked as well last week about this potential new, league that Maverick Carter and a few other people are trying to start up. They need $5 billion. I mean, the money in Saudi Arabia, they can sneeze and have $5 billion ready if needed.
Yeah.
So maybe the NBA is also moving forward somewhat with this to see, hey, maybe there's another threat out there. We've got to get ahead of the game, because if there's investment money to be had, we want to get our hands on it.
Yeah.
Well, the other interesting thing here in Windy's article, that he writes about, he says, this is an explosive story in Europe, a threat to the legacy league that was founded in 1958. And so that's what I also find is interesting, is like the Euro League, which is fantastic right now. It's thriving, it's growing, it's getting bigger and better every year. It's in its 25th season. It's not like a partnership. I think it's seen as a threat. And so, that's what's going to be interesting, as well as like how they respond here now, and whether they try to invest more and try to, get that investment money so that maybe they can increase the salaries to maybe even compete with some of the NBA teams for those guys who are a little deeper on the roster and maybe only making 3 or 4 million a year. If the EuroLeague can be like, hey, you can come to Europe and you can earn twice that and get lots of minutes, maybe that's where there's going to be some competition as well. So I'm fascinated to see how it plays out. But certainly, and Adam Silver, again, in the article, he says they may have a decision on moving forward, with their plans as early as March. I think there's going to be a big meeting in San Francisco here in just under a month at the All-Star weekend. So, interesting times there, because it seems like once someone's ready to write a check, everyone's like, wait, better get ready, get in line, because we don't want to miss out on this.
100%. Like, it's just because Emirate money, I don't think would go over quite as well, and I think Adam Silver has been very cognizant of that. And welcoming that into the NBA here domestically. But if it happens over there in Europe, where people aren't paying as much attention and they already have a presence in the sports world out there, that's how you get to, have your cake and eat it too.
Well, exactly. They're not really investing in the NBA, but the NBA is going to get a nice little piece of that pie. Okay, before we move on to Buenos Aires, the last topic header we've got there, Lakers-Celtics. It was a classic last night, not necessarily on the court, but certainly in the way the teams were presented and dressed.
Yeah.
Finally, when was the last time that has happened? We've seen the Lakers at home yellow versus the road green Celtics.
It's been a minute. The fact that we noticed it, right, and then other people noticed it. Wob on Twitter does a great job of kind of charting jersey matchups and the aesthetics of a game in that regard. And he was like, all right, we are back to where we should be here and how this game should look. And I'm not kidding, Lee. I really think the game looked like it meant more than it would have if the Lakers were wearing those heinous city jerseys that say Lake Show on it and not Lakers, or if Boston was wearing those disgusting, their jerseys might be the only ones that I like less than the Lakers city jerseys this year. The Lakers also hilariously are like 1-7 in those jerseys.
In the Lake Show ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really think that's the basketball gods. Like, do not ever put anything but Lakers across their chest.
Yeah.
That's how and so anyway, the game itself, obviously really enjoyed watching the Lakers win the way that they did. I think LeBron James and Anthony Davis made a very clear statement to the front office on the court, as Anthony Davis was making a very clear statement off of the court to the front office that he wants them to inject more talent into this team. But I think more importantly, in a macro sense here for the league, branding matters. And this is something that the NFL does really, really well. If you watch a Vikings-Packers game, you know what it's going to look like. If you watch Cowboys-Niners, you know what it's going to look like. You watch, and baseball's like this too. You watch Dodgers-Yankees, you know what that's going to be. Red Sox-Yankees, like Dodgers-Giants. Like, there are traditional colors that when you tune into a game, you know exactly who to root for and what they're going to look like, what the game is going to feel like, all of that stuff. In this one, the Lakers and the Celtics were wearing their traditional jerseys, especially being, the Lakers were wearing their home. Now they're banana yellow, but their home golds, and Boston was wearing their traditional green uniforms. The game looked right, and I really think it fed into the way that the players went about this. Early on in that game, they were throwing haymakers at each other. The Lakers just outstripped them. Really interesting approach that they took to guarding Boston. But I really thought that, like, all of the guys on the court there saw, all right, this is a historic matchup. This is something that really matters here. This is not just one of 82. And, this is something that the league really needs to learn from, especially during, they hyped this up at rivalry week. I like the idea of it. I think they could execute it a little bit better. Finishing it off with Lakers, Celtics wearing those colors. That's where they landed the plane that way. Now, take note of that and tell Nike that you guys are being, penny wise, dollar dumb with all of the new jerseys every single year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel similar. I don't mind them having one alternate jersey, maybe two for something in particular. But when you tune in, you're just like, all right, what are they wearing this for tonight? What's the reason? That
Right.
sort of then does confuse. Because I do think it comes back to branding, and you're sort of looking out there and you're like, who am I watching tonight? I've never seen that jersey before. And this is not just a Lakers-Celtics thing. This is with many teams. Now, I understand why they do it. It's like, hey, buy a new jersey, buy another jersey, this jersey, that jersey. But it's the same in the soccer world, where they have so many and they get away from their sort of traditional colors, which makes it tough. Like, I remember seeing, Manchester United wearing grey and stuff, and I'm like, why are they wearing grey? It just does not look good. No team should wear grey. I think they're the ugliest jerseys I've ever seen. But the Lakers, I don't mind the Lakers white. I think that's a nice color. What do they call those? The Hollywood Knights? Is that the one?
Yeah. So they have you're talking about the Lakers jerseys?
Yeah, the white ones. I don't mind those ones.
Oh, the Sunday whites.
Yeah. The yellow and
those have been around for a while.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. I mean, most of them by this point have. So I'm okay with those. But yeah, I would like to see a little more, like classic. Hey, you tune in and you know exactly who it is. The only thing I would say is, for the most part, I actually think the home team should wear their rich color rather than white. I think,
Oh yeah, yeah.
if you're at home, you want to be colorful. You don't want to be
Hmm.
white. White seems like, just give that to the traveling team. That's the only
Yeah.
sort of tweak that I would make, to how it is done. But of course, that's that's not going to change overnight. But I always sort of think, like, you want to see the Bulls in Chicago wearing red. I think that looks way better than wearing white, and then
Yeah.
having white on the road. But again, for the most
Something
part, I
else that
think,
football does, like the when you're at home, you wear your richer colors,
yeah,
and when you're on the road, you typically wear white.
yeah, yeah. That's what they should do. But I mean, like, the Lakers yellow looks fine at home. I mean, because it's not white.
It's not white.
Or it's the Lakers gold, I should say. But they don't really wear those classic maroon ones anymore, though, do they? Like the old Lakers ones. Like, you don't see those ones on the road at all, really, do you? I mean, I know the Lake Show one itself is sort of purple, but it's not like the old one of Magic and Worthy and Kareem. Like, I had the posters on my wall of their
Yeah.
thick purple. You don't really see
Yeah,
those, do you?
they they've kind of done away with them, and then they also added this weird like black bar down the side of
Yeah,
their jerseys that, like, it's just like, what are you doing? Like, why?
yeah, yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
can see that little adjustment anyway, so there's no reason to tweak it. But no, like it used to be very simple, for the Lakers. You wear gold at home, you wear purple away, and in my opinion, I'm biased here, but best jerseys in the sport, in the best jersey combinations in the sport. And then if you play on a Sunday, you're wearing Sunday whites. Like, that's how it always has been. And then they kind of added, like, for a little while, they've done some like retro jerseys where they added some like UCLA blue and well, I guess it was Minneapolis blue, where it's like that like lighter blue. That looked all right. I was okay with that. But now, like, where you've taken a step where they have this like black to purple gradient, and it says Lake Show on the front, and they have this really dumb court that they play on too, and it just doesn't look like it looks like a Laker game that you would see on like Lifetime, that
Right,
doesn't have the rights to the Lakers.
right, right.
Like
Yeah.
it just like, and it's just like, hey, guys, you're messing with stuff that you don't need to
Well,
be messing with
did you
now.
see the Australian Open at all? The tennis that's on right now. They couldn't have rights to the games on YouTube, so they got the animation of showing what was happening instead. So it was like, we can't show the real highlights. We'll just do an animated version of it
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah.
So it sort of sounds like that, what you're saying
Yeah. Yeah, it's
there.
like a reanimation. It's like these zombie Lakers that just like
Yeah,
shouldn't exist. Like,
yeah,
you guys are doing just fine. The Lakers branding is the one thing that they have hit right on over my entire lifetime. Why are you
yeah,
screwing with it now? Just
yeah,
leave it
yeah, yeah,
alone.
yeah. All right. Well, anyway, the Lakers got the win there at home, and that kept you happy, despite the fact that you had an early start there with the little man. But
Yeah.
you got the win. That's the most important thing, especially after the Celtics just smashed the Warriors on, what was that, Sunday?
Yeah, like
Ugh,
40.
yeah. Ugh, that was an ugly one there. Right. Okay. So staying in Buenos Aires, I've been there, since we've gotten back, because, again, I've just got more and more content still to talk about there. And last week I released a video from this really cool court in La Boca. I mean, it's not really a court you go and play on, but it's in a great area, and it tells the story and the history of Boca Juniors, the team, and how that team got its name. It got its colors. The colors are fascinating because, do you know off the top of your head the colors of Boca Juniors?
No.
Gold
No, no,
and
I do. No, I do.
yeah,
Because we just watched it. We just talked about it last week. It's like
yeah.
the like they look like the Rams.
Yeah, well, it's blue and gold, so it's not too far away from the Lakers'
Yeah.
purple and gold there. Anyway, the reason they came up with those colors was, when they were building their team, the owners of the team couldn't come up with a color. Or couldn't agree on a color. And Boca, La Boca is the mouth of the river where the ships all came in, and they said, "All right, whichever ship comes in next, we're going with those colors." True story, man. It's true story.
That's awesome.
It's all illustrated on the walls there. And it was a Swedish ship, luckily. And the Swedes have got beautiful flag, the blue
Yeah.
and the gold there. And so they looked around and they're like, perfect, let's go with this. And so now Boca Juniors it is that blue and gold. It's funny because I've always sort of seen it, thought it is nice colors, and it sort of reminds me of the Swedish flag. And it's like, oh, that's why it reminds you of the Swedish flag, because it literally was taken from the Swedish flag there. Yeah, really, really cool.
Like sponsored by
great,
IKEA.
yeah. Great story, and now one that's enshrined as well in Boca Juniors history there. So the next video that I am putting out is I got a private tour of the Boca Juniors basketball stadium, which was really, really cool. Now, obviously, their football stadium is what people more associate there with Boca Juniors. La Bombonera, they call it there, where it just you've seen it, I'm sure, where it's just like rocking anytime there's a game on now. Unfortunately, there was no football or basketball on while I was there, but the good people at the Boca Juniors Basketball Club said, "Hey, you want to come and shoot some hoops and put something together? Come on in." And they let me in there, and it was great. I mean, it's a small arena, only holds about 2,500 people, but you've seen some of those videos. I've shared them on here. It seems like there's 10 times that amount of people in there, because anything Argentina, anything Boca Juniors, those fans absolutely go nuts and create an atmosphere and an environment that's really, really special. So hoping, as I say, to have that out on Sunday, maybe Monday though, because it's been a very, very busy week here, doing all sorts of stuff, and now getting together with the All-Star weekend. We've had the Hawks play 2 games in a row. They've got another one tomorrow night against those Raptors again. Gonna be, what do you think of the baseball series there? The sort of, two games against the same team.
I get it. It's kind of a bummer. Like I really enjoy the fact that, NBA teams play each other multiple times over the course of the season. So if you see them early in the season, you get to see what kind of happens to them later in the year. But if you play them back to back, you don't see any of that growth or any of that development in one way or the other. So that's kind of a bummer, but I also understand there is so much travel that goes on in like for all of these teams. Trying to limit that is in any way that they can, I think makes a lot of sense too.
Well, it's a good thing the Raptors didn't arrive a day earlier, because we had more snow
Yeah.
here, and the city was shut down and kids were off school. My 2 boys, so Monday was MLK Day, so that was off. Tuesday, Wednesday, snow days, they were off. And then Thursday, they went back, but it was a short day. They staggered the school opening so that it wouldn't be sort of just everyone out on the roads at the same time.
Yeah.
So they had half a day Thursday. This morning, Friday, my 8-year-old, when I woke him up, I'm like, bro, you've been basically off all week.
Yeah.
You've got to get up on the easiest day to get up, on a Friday.
Yeah. You have a case of the Mondays on a Friday.
Yeah. And you're still complaining. So it was pretty funny. But the snow was great. They were building snowmen, and they had a good time. But just Atlanta's just not built for snow, man. It's
No.
People,
I live here in Texas, and everybody's hitting HEB and Costco to load up on everything that they possibly can, because we're all still scarred from Snubbed a couple of years ago, and it's just these southern states, these southern cities. The North always laughs at us because they're like, 2 inches? That's you're shutting down over 2 inches?
Yeah.
We get that in like June.
Yeah.
but it's a whole thing. We by the way, we got, before we get out of here, we got a super comment. I actually posted this also to the lounge, just to get our audience there more introduced to the show. And we have a comment from one of the regulars there at over on the lounge channel. BG the Kid chimes in here. The Celtics should get more slack for a joke of a playoff run they had last year, only because no one gives us credit for the bubble chip. Also, there's no tax for the Celtics in trades. It would be funny if, like, after that historic run that they went on, they played against some like kind of broken down teams and stuff like that, and now they finally have to play some fully healthy teams, and they might stumble here. I'm the kind of person who doesn't put asterisks on championships, except the Astros one, where they were literally cheating and were punished for cheating. Not really punished because MLB
Yeah.
doesn't really do that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That's the only one that I would assign asterisks to. But like when you see takes about like the Lakers bubble championship and they called it a Disney title and stuff like that, how do you feel about
Well,
that?
I mean, it's hard because I think again the conditions they were living under made that exceptionally challenging. But then, of course, the games themselves, without having to go from city to city to city, makes it also different. So it's a legit championship. They won it. That's LeBron's fourth. He deserves it and all that. But it's hard to sort of categorize it, because I'm the
Yeah.
same. I don't. If you want to put an asterisk, you can find anyone. I did a thing actually once on our old show, the No Dunks there, over the last 20 years, and I said, look, you can easily go through and pinpoint every single championship
Yeah.
has had something. The Warriors, the first one, LeBron was down Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, but then
Yep.
the Warriors against the Raptors were down KD, and
And Clay.
Klay Thompson also was injured in the end there. Yeah, so you can always find an asterisk if you want. The bubble one, it's the toughest one to grade because it's like, was it harder to live basically trapped in the bubble there, or was it actually easier because you didn't have to cross time zones and go through the same media hurdles and all the other commitments that come with any other,
Yeah.
playoff run. So, but either way, you have to go out and there and still win the game. Everyone was trying to compete. And again, the Heat was short-handed, but they still won 2 games. So, I mean, there's a million different ways you can sort of slice it down. But I think the Celtics one, I give the Celtics credit for what they did last year, that things were just without any real drama. They took care of business.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the most exciting in that sense, but it was like, who cares? They should have won the championship. They were favorite. They had a home court. They had, everything in their favor. So if they'd blown it, that would have been a bigger story, I think. But they didn't. And, full credit to them, because right now I don't think they're going to repeat. They don't look all that special.
Yeah. What happens the following year shouldn't really reflect what happened the prior year.
Yeah,
I'm just a hater, so I'm going to go ahead and say that it does. But but yeah, the bubble, to me, the bubble is pretty straightforward. The way that players talk about how difficult that was and how
yeah,
great the basketball was because you removed a lot of that noise.
yeah,
Like the only thing I wish that we would have had, obviously I understand why we didn't, but I wish we would have had fans in the stands for those games in some way, shape, or form. Because like that is the thing that those games missed more than anything, right? They were trying to kind of pump in noise, and it was like always the same kind of monotone. It would almost like background noise that you would fall asleep to. But the basketball, like Devin Booker's crazy run there where he was scoring like
yeah,
crazy for the Suns was insane. Damian had a really cool scoring run on his own. The creation of the Jimmy Butler leaning over meme,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
came from his like crazy. I think it was like a triple double, like a 45-point triple double
yeah. Something
that he
crazy
had
there. Yeah,
yeah, and then obviously, again, I'm biased because of the outcome of it all, but that Lakers team, you heard Anthony Davis kind of describe it last night and how he thought it was like the perfect team. And Rob Pelinka was like, oh no, we could have used Dennis Schroeder. Like I'm of the mind that like I believe players on this stuff. It's kind of how I feel about like Kobe in these all-time discussions where, yeah, analytically speaking, you could say that James Harden had a better offensive season the year that he won his MVP than any of Kobe's offensive seasons. If you want to go that route, cool. But I also don't think we should completely ignore players who put Kobe on their Mount Rushmore.
yeah.
Those guys play the game at a level that like we can't really comprehend.
No,
And for them to like sit there and say, yeah, he was great, or in the Bubbles case, the basketball that was played there was incredible. I think we kind of have to listen to them a little bit.
yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. You're never going to get full agreement because it's not scientific. It's all about
How it feels.
yeah, and how you interpret it, and what you sort of believe is more challenging. And again, like, because I always think being away from your family and in a hotel, I think the families were allowed actually in towards the end there
Yeah.
for the finals, but other than that, to be sort of stranded like they were there without being able to go to a beach or anything like that, the mental challenge that you faced there, I think, was significant because at least, when you are in the playoffs, normally you're going to spend at least half the time at home, with your family in your own bed and
Yeah.
in your own surroundings. And I think that's the emotional health there is enormously important. And to be away from that, would have been tough. I mean, I
Especially
don't remember.
then.
I don't
Like,
remember how long the
years.
bubble was in the end, but it was what,
It was a good month.
July? Yeah, it was the end of July, wasn't it? So it was, and they were in there for a week or two before that. So halfway through July until October, I guess, for the Lakers and the Heat. Anyway,
In the middle of a global pandemic that nobody could really wrap their heads around, people are
yeah,
still yelling at each other over what should or shouldn't have been done. We just had no
yeah,
idea how to respond to it, what the right way to handle it was. And these guys were like, because the NBA needed to make its money,
yeah,
the NBA, these guys were like asked, "Hey, do you guys mind going and completely quarantining yourself
yeah,
from your families?" And you weren't necessarily sure whether or not you were going to see some of them again. Like players did lose family members,
yeah,
from COVID, right? Karl Anthony Towns most
absolutely.
significant among them. Like, yeah, I just all of it kind of stacks up and from a human standpoint, from a basketball standpoint, and I get like the questions about it. But I acknowledge my own biases because of the outcome. But I just tend to think that that was such an extraordinary time for us and the extraordinarily difficult time for us. And then, for the Lakers specifically, they lost Kobe that same season.
Oh, yeah,
It was that championship was this big kind of amalgamation of a very difficult season for Lakers
yeah. I
fans,
think,
the world in general, and then
yeah,
to win it
I
meant a
think
lot.
the anniversary is on Sunday, the
Yeah,
26th.
5 years.
Yeah, it was also a Sunday when he passed away, I think. So, yeah, wow, 5 years, unbelievable, unbelievable stuff. Anyway, we will be back Sunday night around 8 p.m. Eastern for our NBA look in and recap. And we'll see what's happening there, see how Anthony is. Who's up next for the Lakers? I'll sort of gauge your mood by depending on who they're playing, and I'll have a guess.
Yeah. It's Golden State. And yeah, there are
Ooh,
no other sports going on for me right now, right? The
right.
Vikings are out of it. The Dodgers haven't begun spring training yet. So yeah, my mood is going to be completely decided based on how things are going with the Lakers. Lee, buckle up.
Oh man, you're going to be focused and locked in. It's
Yeah,
like when George Costanza got rid of sex, and all of a sudden he's just like, you know,
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
going to be breaking down plays, and I'm just like, whoa.
Did you see them run Spain there? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I thought it was horns. uh, anyway, we will see you Sunday night around 8 p.m. Eastern.